1259, which has been read. Mr. Chief Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 1259 was introduced by Representative Onstead, D. Anderson, and M. Nelson, and Senators Marcellet and Werner. House Bill 1259 is a bill for an act providing for performance audits of the Oil and Gas Division of the Industrial Commission and the State Department of Health. Mr. Speaker, this has a fiscal note prepared by the State Auditor. Their analysis indicates no fiscal impact. Mr. Speaker, your Political Subdivisions Committee recommends do not pass on House Bill 1259 by a vote of 8 yeas, 5 nays, and 1 absent not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hattlestead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, the Political Subcommittee recommends by a vote of 8 to 5 a do not pass on House Bill 1259. 1259 requires the State Auditor to conduct 2 performance audits during the biennium beginning July 1st, 2015. The 2 audits involve the Oil and Gas Division of the Industrial Commission and the State Health Department. The oil and gas audit must include a review of all of the rules and policies of the Oil and Gas Division. In the case of the Health Department, the audit must include a review of all the rules and policies of the department relating to waste created from oil and gas development, as well as the enforcement of these rules and policies. Both the Oil and Gas Division of the Industrial Commission and the Department of Health had an audit completed in June of 2013. Both were designated as fiscal audits, but oil and gas did include a limited performance audit. The performance portion included ensuring field inspections of well sites that are to be completed in a timely manner, make sure that documentation is adequate, conclusions appropriate, and violations are followed up in a very timely manner. Reports show that 95% of rigs were inspected weekly, 75% of the injection wells monthly, and 90% of the producing wells inspected quarterly, matching the goals of the agency. The division performance audit reported that they were in compliance, internal controls were adequate and functioning effectively, and no difficulties were encountered. Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, the Political Subcommittee recommends a do not pass on House Bill 1259, and I would urge you to concur. Mr. Speaker, may I continue?
May continue.
The North Dakota Legislature currently has a standing committee called the Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review that has authority to request a performance audit be done on any of the state agencies. House Bill 1259 is a duplication. Reports by non-governmental organizations show that the North Dakota Division of Oil and Gas leads the nation in oil and gas regulatory inspection compliance. Accepting the idea that a performance audit can be a positive experience for any agency, 3 current members of LAFRC and Political Subcommittee will make it a priority to see that the recommendations concerning the conducting of a performance audit will be placed on the next agenda. Ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, the Standing Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review Committee exists. The power to call for a performance audit exists. The request for the committee to meet has been done. The request for the 2 performance audits will be placed on the agenda. Therefore, the need of House Bill 1259 is unnecessary. I would recommend a red vote. Mr. Speaker?
Is there any discussion? Representative Onstead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, the bill carried out, explained it. It's a very simple bill. It's asking for a performance audit. If you've paid any attention to recent news articles about oil spills, if you read reporters that come out from the New York Times, local reporters, there's a lot of skepticism out there in the public. If you ask yourself, if you look for property protection for surface and mineral owners, if you ask yourself that you're concerned about the health of North Dakota citizens, if you're wondering whether these agencies are adequately funded, if you're wondering if they're properly staffed to enforce existing statute and rules, if you ask yourself any of those questions, you'd really be saying we should have a performance audit. And it's been covered. We talked about the performance audit moving forward, whether it happens or not. These rules, and if they've had the audit, they're a fundamental question. They're always a general auditing procedure. But if you look at the audit on oil and gas, it said they are high risk of being in non-compliance. They're high risk of being in non-compliance. If you note, the last performance audit we had of Game and Fish, they went through a basic audit, revealed nothing. The performance audit had 40-some citations and 200 firearms are missing. I think the director of that agency was maybe skeptical in the beginning, but he's very happy to have that brought forward. And they've addressed all those things at this point. You can look at a few of the non-compliant issues that's currently in place with Oil and Gas Division. Abandoned wells that are over 7 years, there's a lot of them out there. They've been abandoned for over 7 years. They're not in compliance. Meters, calibration of meters, the auditing of meters that separates ownership between the mineral owners, are they regularly inspected and so on? You could talk to pumpers that go out in the field and work that, and they'll disagree with that notification. Notification to mineral owners. When a certain unit spacing is being expanded, they're to be notified. They're not being notified. That's part of the director of the Oil and Gas Division, make sure that those things are carried out. Payments. We've passed payments. Oil companies, once they miss the 150-day deadline of making a payment back to royalty owners, they're to pay that interest all the way back. They're not paying that interest all the way back. Again, a performance audit would state that. What's the agency afraid of? What's the agent afraid of? So, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, the notification, the suspicion, let's put the public at rest. I think it's not out of line to ask for a performance audit. I think we should support House Bill 1259. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Beadle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, I just wanted to pass along some of the discussion that we had in committee and one of the reasons why this came out with a do not pass recommendation. Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review Committee, just in the last couple of meetings, put forth a couple of audits that they wanted the Auditor's Office to work on. When the Auditor's Office came and testified on this bill, they said that if we passed 1090, that these performance audits would now jump the line and be the ones that would take first priority going into this biennium, and then those other ones would come later. And so part of the discussion that we had was that we wanted to task the Legislative Audit and Fiscal Review Committee to add these audits on. And we did think that they were very worthwhile, but we didn't feel that it was necessary to jump the line of the audits that Lafferty had already decided was worthwhile and needed to take priority. So that's one of the major factors that went into the 8-5 do not pass recommendation. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, I ask the Assembly to concur.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Overson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, I would encourage a green vote on House Bill 1259. Certainly we've heard from the committee discussion on the normal procedure for requesting a performance audit, and that procedure is all fine and well, but I think we as a legislative body also have the ability to set priorities. So passing this bill tells the people of North Dakota that we take this specific performance audit seriously. We set this as a priority, and we want an audit done of the Oil and Gas Division and the Department of Health. I do represent Grand Forks right now, but I grew up in Killdeer, and I've heard from a number of people in that area who have numerous concerns about the conduct of the Oil and Gas Division and the Department of Health. And not that they're doing anything intentionally wrong, but that they're not being able to keep up, and they can't keep up with the demand, and that they probably need some help. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, that a performance audit would help point out those problems, get us on the right path, and I think we should pass this bill and get that performance audit done sooner rather than later and putting it at the bottom of the agenda. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for final consideration House Bill 1259. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Key will be closed and the clerk will take the record. Final vote shows 22 yeas, 67 nay, 5 absent, not voting. House Bill 1259 is declared failed.